We the Voices of Gen Z is a documented roundtable discussion of diverse Gen Z voices, discussing social and political issues. The goal is to spark peer dialogue, encourage action, and create sustainable solutions that support our collective right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans, regardless of race, color, socioeconomic status, religion, gender, or sexual orientation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
That they are endowed by their creator
with certain unalienable rights.
That among these are life,
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hi everyone, my name is Lexi Underwood. Welcome to We the Voices of Gen Z. Today's discussion is about all Black Lives Matter and the erasure of Black women, Black trans men and women from the conversation of equality. We have joining us an actor and changemaker, best known for his work in the Tony Award-winning musical Dear Evan Hansen, Ben Levi Ross. We have actor, changemaker, best known for her role as Tess in the Emmy Award-winning This Is Us, Eris Baker. We have Chanice McLover-Lee, who is an 18-year-old youth organizer, writer, filmmaker, and changemaker. We also have joining us today an actor and changemaker who was recently seen as young Raymond Santana in the Emmy-nominated When They See Us, Marquis Rodriguez. We also have joining us today an activist known as Little Miss Flint from Flint, Michigan, who is best known for raising awareness about Flint's ongoing water crisis and fundraising to support underprivileged children in her community and across the country, Copeny. Today, we also have joining us the incredible Marley Dias, who is an author and activist, who in November of 2015 launched a campaign called 1,000 Black Girl Books. Her goal was simple: to collect and donate 1,000 books that feature Black girls as the main character. For our subject matter experts, we have joining us the incredible Ashlee Marie Preston, who is a trans journalist and activist. We also have the phenomenal Miss Janaya, who is the activist and co-founder of Black Lives Matter Toronto. And as our mental health expert, we have Naima Calvillo. I'm so incredibly excited to get into this conversation. I can't thank you all enough for joining me today. I like to open up the discussion with kind of just asking some simple questions of how are we doing? So the past few months have been incredibly overwhelming, to say the least. From being quarantined due to the global pandemic, listening to stories or bearing witness to the violent crimes and murders of Black women and Black men, Black trans women and Black trans men at the hands of police, or sadly within our own community. And the death of George Floyd, which seemed to be the catalyst that has sparked the largest civil rights movement in history. The message that Black Lives Matter is resonating in all 50 states and on every continent in the world. Each one of you all have been on the front lines using your voice, your platforms, or your influence to forward this message. So with that, like I said, it can all be incredibly overwhelming. And to be clear, like none of what we're experiencing is normal. So I just want to ask everyone, how are you doing? How are you processing everything?
First of all, thank you for having me on. This is like amazing. It's really, really amazing to see all of your faces right now. This is like kind of blowing my mind. I'm really happy to be a part of it. And then thank you for checking in that way. I think there are a lot of these sorts of things right now that it can be really easy to like capitalize on the moment and the movement and sort of like get all of these like specifically Black voices to just air everything out and not check in while you're doing that. So I really appreciate you doing that, Lexi. But I'm okay. I think like there have just been things that I've had to unpack for myself. And I think that there have been sort of realizations that like I've made about like anger, like deep-seated anger that I've had for years and years that I've never been able to address or let out in any way. And I'm sort of like trying to find ways to do that productively through this. And I think that's like really what I've been trying to make my goal right now, just sort of finding direct and very exact ways to enact change and use that sort of like anger that I've like stamped down for so many years in the most productive way. So things like this are like a godsend and like a really great outlet for that, because it's not often that we get to have conversations in rooms that look like this, right? I mean, so I feel incredibly lucky a lot of the time, just because everything is being spoken about right now. There's no like taboo, there's no off limits, everything is being aired out right now, and I think that I'm really grateful for that.
I feel like right now is a super emotive moment because my voice is being brought to the center in a way that it normally isn't, and it's super important for me that people understand that I do this work even when Black Lives Matter and the moments that are going on right now aren't trending, that all of us exist in this space all the time, every day. And as Black people, as people of color, as people that are LGBT, we exist in a way where we can't turn off and turn back on who we are. Our reality is that the moments and the things on right now, they exist for us daily. And these fears are really amplified by seeing that there are more protests and there are more thoughts that are being aired out. But at the same time, I always want to let people know that I do this all the time. I talk about this all the time. And there is no catalyst for me. And I think for everyone in this room, it's really important. And we recognize that we do this work every single day and that we don't wait for a catalyst. So we just want to help and bring people along this kind of journey of finding a way where we can create more equity. But I'm also super happy that our conversations keep coming back up. But I want to remind people that this moment exists for the past 5 years for me, that I've been speaking out about activism and my passions and my frustrations and how I hope to change the world. And now hopefully we can galvanize a community that lasts beyond the next press cycle or things of that sort.
I, of course, have been better, especially during these times. I already knew that Black lives matter, and that, like, just in life and growing up in a society where we are seen as a threat or as a threat and not an ally, I really want to advocate for change. And I don't want to blow this off like we've done in the past. I feel like we've had this same thing happen and then we forget about it and then we go on with our lives and another person dies and then we get all hyped up and we start to advocate for change and then we just let it off again, if that makes sense. And I'm really happy that we're having conversations like these to really advocate for change and not stopping and continuing the conversation. So things like this definitely bring more positivity into my life right now.
That's a loaded question. I'm angry. I'm excited. I'm happy to see this moment in time becoming a movement. I'm present with the pains of seeing, so many traumatic things happening to Black people on a daily basis because we have instant access to it because of social media. But I'm also present with the possibilities of a different world being possible.
Well, seeing as clearly there's like a disconnect in terms of my face on this panel right now, I'm here to talk today to any white people who are watching. And I'm mostly here because this is truly insane to see all of your faces and hear you talk one-on-one. Throughout the past few weeks, I've attempted to use my platform as a launch point for people who are following me because of my connection to the Broadway community, which has had its own sort of like implosion right now. And they've had their own seminars that I've been a part of. And there are a lot of young people who are looking to do something right now, a lot of young white people. And I'm realizing that the only and best thing to do right now is to be amplifying voices like yours, who I've been so inspired by. And also attempting to get people to shut up and listen, because you need to remove yourself in a moment like this, and your whiteness is toxic. So you need to just remove yourself from the situation and be amplifying as many Black voices as possible and as many Indigenous voices as possible. And so my anger isn't really worth anything if it's not put to use in that way. So that's pretty much what I've been doing.
Yeah. And thank you so much for using your voice and your platform to amplify and spread awareness to this movement, because we have seen it kind of play out in the media right now, where we see a lot of our white counterparts speaking up about these things. There's a difference between, you know, posting versus like amplifying it and really trying to spread awareness and try and create change. So I thank you for doing that, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. Ashlee, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I understand that white supremacy's mission is to destroy us from the inside out. And I understand that joy is an act of resistance. So it's been an opportunity for me to try to tap into those things that bring me joy, and to also share those moments with other Black folks in a way that uplifts one another. And also, it is a difficult time because as someone who's a Black trans woman, my intersectional identity overlaps with multiple marginalized groups. So where many are just talking about the suffering they experience for being Black, I'm also talking about the suffering that I experience for being trans. And I'm also talking about how some of these conversations around lateral oppression take place in Black community even. And this indoctrination around trans issues and LGBTQ issues, and this attempt to constantly divorce Black liberation from queer and trans liberation. And so I've had an opportunity in this moment to underscore the ways in which they're connected. And so it's been a time of joy all the more because I get to build cross-cultural collaborations that yield dignity and power that we've been fighting for generations.
Racial justice and the work of Black Lives Matter, the work of the Movement for Black Lives, and even this Black Renaissance that we're sort of seeing in the media. Racial justice isn't something that you do. It's something that you become. You become, it's not called, I don't see it as racial justice or even trans justice. And I see Ashlee nodding because we talk about this before. It's called being alive. It's called being alive. That is what it means to be in the world. Because activism doesn't build character, it reveals character. And the whole point of us being on this planet is to try to figure out who we are and what we intend to do while we're here. And so I'm seeing so much uprising, and part of our job, I think, as organizers and those who, myself as the international ambassador for Black Lives Matter, is how to steer this energy to where it needs to be. But I think so many of our folks, so many people on this call, we're tired of being ambulance chasers, trying to manage one crisis after the other. And so, I want to say to everyone on this call, and really to everyone listening, that we're with you. And folks like Ashlee and myself, we intend to pass over the reins to something far more promising and more beautiful and more expansive than the world that we were given. And it is an incredibly difficult and isolating moment. And to remember that when we stand arm in arm and shoulder together, so much more is possible. And that's all we're fighting for, is possibility. And we've got a crack now. We're not going to let it go. We're going to keep working at it. But everybody's coming together the way that they have, even on this call. It means something. And I'm always going to be inspired by that. I'm always going to feel the power in that. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm grateful to have you a part of this panel. Even just something that you said that I want to get into a little bit later. I was listening to your Sunday sermon yesterday, and you did touch on the fact that our strength has nothing to do with the amount of oppression that we've had to suffer, that we've had to endure. And so I want to turn it over to Naima. What advice do you have on how to process this range of emotions that we're feeling?
Yes, hi, thank you for having me. And I think this is just really wonderful and really important to check in with everyone during a time like this. I've found that it's a really busy time. I feel that people are reaching out to me a lot more, especially in the past few weeks. And I think that, a lot of what has been said about the range of emotions that we're all feeling right now is just, it's being amplified, right? So much. It's really important that we're just being really kind to ourselves and being kind to everyone else who is involved in this. I say this to people all the time, the world is really hard right now, and so we don't need to put any additional stress or make it any harder on ourselves. And we have a tendency to do that, especially when you're doing the kind of work that you're all doing. It's important to allow yourself to just feel whatever you're feeling. And like we've heard, it ranges from so many different, it's like a pendulum, like you said, from fear to anger and being excited and rage and sadness and depression and anxiety. And all of those are really huge emotions right now that are very difficult to deal with when we're not in the midst of this, global and racial pandemic. So it's important to just kind of take a break and recognize that it's a marathon, that it's, going to take some time, and that it's okay to allow some of your allies to help you with this. It's okay to disconnect. It's probably really important to disconnect sometimes. And I think it's important to celebrate the successes that have been accomplished through all of this. And of course, to reach out and get the professional help when you need it. I think that sometimes we get caught up in feeling like we need to be, we're always told that we're strong and that you're so strong, you can handle this. And I think that that is internalized as meaning that you don't need to seek out assistance or help, or that you should be okay with everything. And that if you're not feeling that way, that there's something wrong and you feel like you're betraying, yourself, your community, it's okay. This is a tough time. All of these issues are really huge and difficult to deal with. And it's important to get that kind of support when you need it.
Thank you for being on this call, because I think oftentimes, especially with, young activists, people are constantly looking to us or, the phenomenal people a part of this panel to have all the answers. And, nobody really just sits back and asks, how are you doing? And how are you processing this? So I think it's definitely important to discuss just the mental health and trauma aspect behind just everything that's been happening.
You help us, we help them. Compassion is ingrained in love. That's the answer, but we answer to the opposite direction of the cause. Black bodies, they don't care. You see me unaware of what's on my mind. Black bodies, oh, I need you to see me, yeah. I got some good change in my heart. That's where change gotta start. That's where change gotta start.